See here, we're going to start page 3 of the midterm review packet, and the first one asks for the difference quotient, and this is what we mean by the difference quotient right here. So we want to plug x plus h, in for x, and then we're going to plug x in and divide it by h. So here we go. Step 1, plug x plus h in right there. So I have 4 over x plus h minus 3. And I'm going to subtract away from that the original function, y over x minus 3 all over h. Okay, now we're subtracting fractions, so I need a common denominator. These denominators are totally different. So I've got to multiply this guy by x minus 3 and this guy by x plus h minus 3. So now, got an h on the bottom. So now my new denominators are x minus 3, x plus h minus 3, and there are 2 of them. And I'm going to distribute the tops. So this becomes 4x minus 12. This becomes 4x plus 4h minus 12. Okay. So we still got this h in the denominator, but now I'm going to actually subtract these. So I'm going to combine them over one of these. All right, so I have 4x minus 12. Now I have to be careful that I distribute this negative to all 3 pieces. So that makes negative 4x minus 4h plus 12. And you know you did it right as certain things start to go away. You notice the 4x's are gone, the 12's will go. So I end up with negative 4h all over x minus 3, x plus h minus 3 all over h. Well, I'm going to make h look like a fraction, and now I'm going to do keep, change, flip. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So there's the top. Times, I'm going to flip this guy over. And the beauty of that is the h's cancel. So my final answer is negative 4 all over x minus 3, x plus h minus 3. And that is the answer to the question. So that's the first guy. All right, let's take a look at what I got here next. It says, find f of g of x if f of x equals that guy. Find what is the domain? Okay, first off, you take whatever letter's closest to the x. That's g of x. So I'm going to take all of that and put it right there. So I'm going to get f combined with g of x is going to be 1 over radical x squared plus 2x, and I'm going to add on the 1. So that's that part. Now it wants the domain. All right, we have a radical in the denominator, so we know there's issues. Now, I'm just going to focus on this. I would like to know when this would equal 0. Well, that factors to be x plus 1, x plus 1. So when x equals negative 1, that would make this guy 0. So I'm going to draw a number line. And I'm going to test on either side of that. If I plug negative 2 into this, right, I get negative 2 squared plus 2 times negative 2 plus 1. So that is 4 minus 4 plus 1. That's a 1. So that's positive. I can have a positive in there, so that looks okay. Now I'm going to plug in 0 into this. I'm going to plug 0 in. You also got a 1. So that seems okay. Now let's try something. What if I plug in negative 3, in case I'm not selling you on this? Negative 3 squared. Right, that makes 9 minus 6 plus 1, which makes 3. It makes, oh, so positive. So it is so good. So really the only thing that's going to ruin this thing is negative 1. So I'm going to put an open circle there. So my domain Okay, my domain for this thing is going to be negative infinity to 0 or 0 to infinity, because the only thing that's ruining it is a negative 1, because we cannot have a 0 in the denominator. All right, find f negative 1x of this guy. All right, that little negative 1 means inverse. And to find the inverse, we switch the x and the y. So I'm going to switch over to my red pen. So this becomes x equals 3y, 2 minus y. Now you have to get the y alone again. So what I'm going to do is put this over 1, cross multiply. So that's 3y equals 2x minus xy. Now, you want to get all the y's on the same side of the equal sign. So add that over. Factor out the y. And then divide by 3 plus x. So I end up with y equals 2x over 3 plus x. So the best way to write the answer is f negative 1x equals 2x over 3 plus x, or x plus 3. Voila. All right, next one. Describe the transformation. All right, a negative out in front means the word reflection. So this is going to be reflection over the x-axis. All right. This affects the x, and anytime it affects the x, we do the opposite. So this is going to be horizontal shift 4 units to the right. And then the last piece is a vertical shift up 1. That's all you got to write for that one. And the last question, use the fact that x equals negative 2 is the 0 of this thing to factor it. Now this is like the one we did on the last page. Because negative 2 is a 0, what that means is if we plug in negative 2, the answer is 0. This means x plus 2 is a factor. So, it means I can do synthetic division. Put negative 2 in a box. I'm going to write down all the coefficients. So this is 1. We're missing x squared. Negative 2, 4. Bring down the first one. This times this is negative 2. Add down. This times this is 4. Add down. Add down. Now this should have been a 0 because that's what this means. Okay. Now we divided once. The original exponent used to be 3. So that means we have 1x squared minus 2x plus 2. And does this factor? Let's see here. X plus, no, it does not factor, so we have to use the quadratic formula. Okay, so we got here. Nope, we're not solving, so I don't need to use the quad formula. This is it. This guy and x plus 2, that's the factor. We can actually stop there. Yeah, if it said solve, we'd have to keep going with the quad formula. But since it only says factor, that's the most we can do. And that's it for that page.